Hey guys, so I wanted to make another guide video for you guys. I've been going over the basics of a few things in the game. First, we've gone over the basics of tempo, and we've gone over the basics of your roles. Links to those videos will be in the description. Today, we're going to go into the basics of the early game. What should you be doing in the early game depending on which path you choose? Now, before I go on, I'd like to mention that 66% of you are still not subscribed to the channel, so please, if you watch the videos, please subscribe. I do this full time and it helps me so much more than you know. Now, when I talk about the early game, what do I mean? This is essentially the first 3 minutes before the big objectives, what you should be doing to get advantages in the path that you choose. Now, what do I mean by paths? Well, in Pokémon Unite, there are 3 separate paths you can choose from. You have the top path, the bottom path, and the central area. Now, this video is just going to cover the basics. I'm not going to get into anything too advanced like stacking items or which Pokemon to be played in which areas. I'm just going to go over the basics of what you should do when you're in these places. What can give you a good advantage going into those big objective fights coming up, and how you can truly win the early game, because yes, you can win the early game. Now, first off, let's say that you've chosen the top path. So when I was recording this, I was talking about the top path, and then I started realizing that the bottom path is kind of the same thing at the moment. It's played very similar down to its fundamentals and its basics. Of course, there are differences, but following this guide, kind of just replace the word Balto with Indeedee, and it'll be essentially the same thing. Now, when you're on the way to the top path, of course, you want to clear your Veneeries with your teammates. You want to make sure that if you're the offensive Pokemon in that lane, you get more than if you're the supportive Pokemon in that lane. Make sure you're funneling that on to the person who needs the power spikes the most. Then when you get to the lane, you really want to focus on that central Baltoy. This is the neutral camp. These are in both of the lanes. Now, neutral camps are really important. The reason for that is whoever gets the neutral camp is automatically at an experience advantage. If you just peel back and do your own Veneery, then the enemy's going to take this and they're going to have more wild Pokemon than you, meaning they're going to be a higher level than you. This is really problematic, and you want to be the ones in the driver's seat of the lane. This goes back to tempo. Now, once you can test the central Baltoy, if you do get it, you kind of get to make a decision here. If you're winning this fight really well, you can push onto the enemy's Veneery. You can start taking experience from their side, which is really beneficial to you and your lane partner. The thing here is you need to be on the same page as your lane partner. If you see your lane partner pulling back to do your own Veneeries, it's likely you're not going to be able to pressure them 1v2 on theirs, and you're not going to be able to win that fight and get that experience, and instead you're going to feed them more. So you're going to actually turn around what would have been an advantage to you into an advantage to them because your teammate pulled back. Sometimes you need to pay attention to what's going on around you. It's really important to get on the same page as your lane partner. In a perfect scenario, if your lane partner comes with you and you pressure their Veneeries, you take both of them, you score some points, you back up and you get yours. This is called freezing out the enemy. You have got them stuck at a low level while you guys are shooting up in experience. Remember, you need to take down a wild Pokemon to evolve, so if they aren't able to do this, you're going to turn your Marchop into a Machoke while they're still a Marchop. It's going to put you in a very, very big advantageous position. Now, you need to be careful when you're doing this too. If you are overextended, if you are staying on their side for too long and not watching the timer, well, an enemy jungler from the central path is going to appear in your lane and punish you for this. You need to be aware of what's going on around you, where your teammate is, and try to pay attention to where the enemies could be coming from as well. Now, after this initial fight of contesting the Baltoy and deciding whether you're going to go for their Veneeries or yours, you're going to see another neutral camp spawn right above you. This again is important to go for. Anything in the middle is going to be contested. If you get both of the neutrals and yours safely, you'll be ahead of the enemies even if you didn't take theirs. It's really important for you to want to stay ahead in the lane because that's going to help you get those power spikes first. Whoever evolves first in the lane is at a gigantic advantage. You really want to be focusing on that and hitting those power spikes. Now, a huge mistake I see a lot of people making is not paying attention to the fact that at the 9-minute mark, there is a camp that spawns right behind your goal. Now, getting this could be the last thing you need to hit that evolution before the big fight coming up, and that big fight coming up is the 850 Swablues and Altaria. This is a really big deal. This big fight in the center part of the lane over the big neutral camp really swings the experience either way. If you were ahead and evolve first and you get all of these, you have truly frozen out your enemy and you are going to snowball out of control here. You are going to become so incredibly oppressive and they're not going to be able to deal with you. Now, that being said, if you're the team that was behind in the lane and you take these, you could now turn it all around and quickly evolve in the enemy's face. If an enemy was pressuring you a lot and taking some poke and now you've evolved in their face, you've iframed their abilities, you're able to take them down, it can really swing a lane for you. You need to be at these, they are really important, and it's very, very likely that you will see a jungler here. It is either going to be in the top or the bottom path, but a central path jungler will appear at these Altaria. Now at this point is when things start to get a little bit interesting, so after this it will repeat the process. You'll see your neutral spawn in the lane, and you'll want to start doing the same thing, although this time there'll be some Baltoy spawning below you in the central area. Now, the jungler will likely go for these, and if they do, leave them for them, respect their farm. But a lot of the time your jungler will just run back to their jungle, and these will be up for grabs, and you'll want to grab them to deny the enemy jungler from getting them. But be careful, you don't want you and your lane partner to both go down there. If you both leave your lane unattended, the enemy laners you were fighting are going to get all the experience in your lane, and you're going to lose any kind of lead you had or any hope of coming back. You need to send one down to help, or you need to just both stay up there and accept that the enemy jungler is going to take them. Do not let your laners get ahead of you. It is important for you to play your job and your role. Now, the moment you really want to start looking at the central area is around the 8-minute mark. There are going to be a horde of Swablu and an Altaria spawning in the central area at 8 minutes. This is really important for your team to go for. This is a lot of team-wide pressure. If you get these with your jungler, you are likely going to get a huge experience advantage, and if the enemy jungler gets them, they're going to ensure that level 9. Level 9 is where most Pokemon get their Unite move, especially the ones playing in the central path. So denying that from the enemy is a really, really big deal. Now, you don't want all 5 people in your team to go there. You want to leave at least one in each lane defending it, but you really want to start looking toward that area to see if you can help. Sometimes you're not needed. Sometimes the enemy jungler is up in your lane not doing them. It's on you to make the decision of when to go and when to stay. This will come with time, practice, and experience. Don't be too hard on yourself if you mess this up every now and then. After that point, it's going to be about getting into position for an objective. At the moment, people are doing the Regieleki in the top lane, so a lot of people are 5-man rotating up to the 720 Swablu and Altaria in the top lane to really focus on getting there for the Regieleki. Now, I would personally say leave maybe one person in the bottom lane to defend that goal and get at least those Swablu and Altaria down there, but at the moment, if your team's going, why not go with them? It's better to be on the wrong page and it be the same page than be on different pages. It's important to work with your team and figure out what they're trying to do. Getting us all in one place is really what's important at the moment, and we can figure that out as we go. Now, if I'm being completely honest, the bottom lane is essentially the same thing. It's just got Indeedee down there. So follow this guide in the bottom lane as well, just Indeedee, not Baltoy. Similar thing, you know, get the neutral farm, pressure their farm, protect your farm, snowball, etc, etc. Now, throughout this time, also, don't forget to be defending the goal from them scoring points if they are the ones getting ahead. You can play offensively, but you've got to play defensively sometimes. And I'm sure from what I've said here, you'll be able to gather which one you need to do and how to kind of play that. Because if you know what you're trying to achieve, if the enemy's achieving it, you can kind of know what you want to defend because they're going to do what you were going to if you were ahead. Now we're going to dive into the central path. Now this path can seem daunting for a lot of people. This is really difficult for most because it's a little more advanced and it's not as simple. What we're going to do is we're going to break it down to basic fundamentals. People do all different clears in here, like double buff early gank and a little different pathings towards the center. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about basic fundamentals and how to play this role effectively early and a little more to a script. Obviously adjust this as you go, but we're going to keep it just very basic. So when you're starting out in the central path, you want to do your Xatu first. This is a no-brainer, nothing else is spawned. Just take out the Xatu. Now here is where it gets a little more interesting if you start pathing towards your red buff. So for anyone that doesn't know, your red spawns at the top and your blue spawns at the bottom. This was different back in Remote Stadium. In Remote Stadium, it was different depending on which side of the map you were on. Now it's always the same. If you start pathing towards your red at the top, you will be in position for when it spawns at 9:45. Clearing your red first is important on this map because the red now gives you increased basic attack damage. That's really useful for clearing your buffs. If you were to do blue first, you would then clear slower because you have more access to your basic attacks than you do to your abilities early in the game. The clear at the moment is usually doing your red, then doing your back Baltoys in a U shape, then around to your blue. Now you have to be careful doing this because it is risky. Getting invaded here is very possible. So pay attention to the minimap and where the enemies are, and sometimes you might need to do your blue buff if you feel the fear of being invaded. The blue is quite important on this map as well. The blue gives you the same passive it used to, where it's increased damage on lower health wild Pokemon, but it's also really good because it now gives you increased cooldown reduction. That is a really important stat, and sometimes you want to funnel this to someone else later in the game. Now, after you do your buffs down here, you're going to be level 5. That's really impactful. You're the highest level on the entire map right now, unless one lane got incredibly out of control. and you need to use this advantage. You want to go to a lane now and you want to make an impact. You either want to get a double KO, you want to get all the Swablu and Altaria and get out and get back to your farm quickly. You're kind of always in a contest against the enemy jungler. If you go to a lane and you get wiped out by the enemy jungler and the enemy jungler takes out both of the Pokemon in your lane, now you're in a really, really rough spot and it's tough to come back from. So you have to start playing from behind. That's where things get a little more advanced. As I said, we're going to focus on the basics today. So when you're looking at which lane to go help, try to look at the minimap and identify which lane would be more helpful to you to go to. Would it be better for you to go help the Mime and Mew that are incredibly dominant in their lane, or do you want to go and feint with the Ralts and Charmander in your bottom lane? When you get to a lane, it's important for you to keep on the pressure. You want to make sure you're getting those Swablu and Altaria with your laners. Now you're really swinging, you're really getting ahead. If you can get a couple knockouts, that's great, and you can score and you can really snowball, but you don't want to overstay. Overstaying is the biggest mistake Central Path junglers make in this entire game. Because if you stay for too long in the lane, the enemy jungler is going to either go clear their jungle and get levels on you, or someone is going to walk into your jungle and take it from you. You need to be on top of your timers. Jungles spawn a minute after you take them down, so be there, be ready to get them when they respawn. Now on this map, there are more advanced plays where you do overstay in lane and then you go towards the 8 minutes. You go towards the Baltoys in the center and you hover around waiting for those 8 minutes Swablu and Altaria. This again is risky if you get invaded, so I suggest when you're starting out going back to your jungle and taking it out. You really want to stay on those timers and guarantee you're level 9. Now if you go to the bottom lane and you get good pressure, you get all the Swablu and Altaria, you get some points in, you'll be level 7. If you're level 7, then you go back and you clear 2 of your buffs quickly, you'll be like level 8. Then you go to the middle, you get those mid Swablu and Altaria, you'll be level 9 and you'll be ready to just dominate a lane with your Unite move. The jungler is the most advanced role, and it's really hard talking here not to go into a million different scenarios, but these are just the basic fundamentals for you to follow. If you follow everything I've said here, I promise you it will make you a better player in the long run, and you will start to discover where you can adapt. Do not follow scripts as you play all of the time. The game is constantly changing. Learn to adapt and react to what other people are doing, but if you know the fundamentals and if you know the basics, you will be okay. Games can get overwhelming. It can seem like there's so much to learn and so much to figure out and you just don't know where to start. So begin here. Begin with the basics. I will be making more basic guides and eventually I will start making intermediate ones into advanced ones. I want to help you guys all grow as players and we can take it step by step together and we can learn the entire game. I hope these videos are something you guys find really helpful because I love making content like this. This is my favorite style of content. If you want to learn things a little more advanced before I make guides for them, check out the other videos on my channel. I recently made a video where I reviewed my own gameplay. This is where I started speaking about mistakes that I made, things that I could have done better, even in a game where it looked like I was popping off. I like to go through my thoughts as I play and I really like to teach as I go. And I feel like that is my strong point and I love sharing it with all of you. As always guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe and have a wonderful day.